Welcome back, Raider fans. Once again, it's our pleasure to be visiting with head men's basketball coach Steve Forbes. Ladies and gentlemen, all this man did in his first season as head coach of the Raiders was lead the team to the most wins in school history, led us to the national championship game, and also won the Pan-Am Conference Coach of the Year and the NJCAA Region 8 Coach of the Year. He's entering his second season and has his team ranked number 2 in the nation. Head coach Steve Forbes, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ramsey.
Coach, obviously we've got a lot to talk about. Certainly, last time we visited was when you got the job, and a lot's happened since then. But let's talk a little bit about, of course, you're coming off a tremendous season last year, and lo and behold, the preseason rankings come out, and you're already number 2, right back where we ended the season. Your program has sustained a lot of momentum. How have you been able to sustain that moving forward in the first 5 to 6 weeks of the season?
Well, I think expectations, when I took over the job, I explained to the team right away that our goals every year was to win the Panhandle, win the region, and compete for the national title. Now, did I think we'd do that in the first year? No, and probably shouldn't have, really, because I really raised the level of expectations, but that's okay. I think that being in a place like Northwest Florida, that's a very good goal for us every year, and so our guys have the momentum now of getting, they understand what it takes to get there. Now, we don't have a lot of guys returning, but we do have a couple good pieces. One thing I do remind my team every day, though, is that the banners that hang in our arena are not banners they put up there, to go put your own up there. And so I challenge each team every year to go hang their own banners. And kind of just to talk a little bit more, expand upon that, as far as your roster is completely different almost. You got 2 returning players, but you have a lot of new faces. How difficult is it to kind of blend all those new faces together and win games at the same time? Because currently you're undefeated. It's hard. But that's coaching. I think that's the most important aspect of coaching is building chemistry. X's and O's can be a little overrated, to be honest with you. Now, Coach Shea may disagree with me, but I do think chemistry is very, very important. We do have the luxury of having our guys in the summer, and that's really important for us to spend that time together, in the summertime, and then come back in the fall. And you do have a lot of time in the fall before you start playing. We actually played 9 scrimmage games basically before we ever played a quote-unquote real game. And so, you get a chance to work out some kinks and get to know each other a little better. But I still think that's a work in progress. A little different than last year, even though we had a core group of guys back. I did bring in some new guys to play with them. This year's kind of starting from scratch.
And really, just because they're new faces doesn't mean that they're young faces.
No.
You have some transfers, and you got a little bit sophomore maturity as far as understanding what it takes to play at the collegiate level.
Yeah, I think when you build a team, you got to build, pieces. And I think for us to go out last year and recruit all freshmen would have been a mistake. And I don't think it would have been fair to Chris either. Chris Jones coming back with all new, a bunch of new freshmen. So I felt it was important to get some guys that had some college experience, be it at the junior college level or the Division I level, and then blend those with some new guys, and then the guys that we have returning. We did have 2 guys sitting out as well, second semester that really, have been through the program. So, it's a mixed bag of people, but that's the fun thing about coaching is getting those guys all on the same page.
Absolutely. Now, you kind of just mentioned his name, but certainly be remiss if we didn't talk about Chris Jones. Of course, one of the most decorated. He has a chance to be the most decorated player we ever had come through our program. Of course, he's freshman All-American last year, and certainly Pan-Am Conference Player of the Year. He's picked up right where he's left off. Just talk about, you've been around a lot of good players, Coach, in your time. Talk about where he ranks among them and how special Chris Jones is.
I don't like to, because they still got some season left, obviously, with him. But, this is my 25th year coaching, and he's as talented a young man as I've ever coached. And I've coached some pretty good players throughout the years, some McDonald's All-Americans, some guys who played in the NBA, some lottery picks. I think Chris is on that level. What makes him different than most is his competitiveness, which I'm sure you've seen many times. His talent is really good, but his competitiveness puts him over the top. And last year he was first-team All-American. He was freshman of the year in the league. I think he was the first-team All-American in the history of our school, which has had obviously some great players play here.
Sure.
So he's already been the National Junior College Player of the Week twice. And twice in Florida. And so. He's off to a good start. I don't know I think he's averaging about 26, 27 points a game, and Maybe scoring a little bit more than what I probably want him to, but
Sure.
he just has to, that's just part of what it is right now. But if you're going to start a team, that's a pretty darn good place to start.
Absolutely, and of course he's committed to Louisville and obviously signed with Louisville, so I'm sure Coach Pitino's excited to have him on board.
He is, and
Yeah.
sometimes I don't know how, maybe they don't realize how good a player he is yet. They'll find out when they get him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, we won't talk a lot about it, but just I felt like definitely needs to be mentioned the fact that we had he had a 75-foot game winner, down by 2, shot it inside the 3-point line on the other side, and made it nothing but net to beat us, to lift us to victory over Lee. Obviously, a very exciting moment.
I like to think that we practice that every day.
Yeah, right.
But we don't.
Now, your team, like I just kind of alluded to, has been in some close games so far this season. If you're coming out in the non-conference and beating people by 30, 35, it's obviously a good sign, but it may not be good to battle test your team as you go into conference season. How do you feel that's prepared for you?
One thing about it, too, unlike last year, we weren't the hunted team. We were the team that people didn't really know much about, new coach, new players, guys that hadn't made the region tournament last year. So, we were kind of coming from nowhere. This year, obviously, being what we finished the season and then where we were ranked, we're getting everybody's best shot, and that's okay. I understand that. We prepare our guys for that. I'm happy that we're 9-0. Sometimes I think winning could cover up your inadequacy sometimes, and I'm real cautious of that. I haven't been real pleased in some of our performances, but yet we've shown resiliency to win those games.
Yeah.
At Georgia Perimeter, we won in double overtime, which a year ago we barely won by 1 point up there. The Lee game, that was the most incredible shot I maybe ever will see, and from a guy that, quite frankly, expected to make it. And that's why he made it. It wasn't it was a lucky shot, yes, but the guy really believed he was going to make it. And so, we've played some good teams. We're going to have a really tough finish here. We play FJCC on Saturday, and then we play Palm Beach on Sunday, and they're undefeated. And then Jones County, Mississippi, next Friday is undefeated too. And so we're going to see where we're at right here before we go home.
Absolutely. And then, of course, you come back and you got Shelton State at home on the 2nd right before we get to conference season, which we'll talk about in just a minute.
Yeah.
You've got a little bit more length this season compared to last year. Is that something that you actively seeked out when you were recruiting, and how has that played a factor in your?
Well, I've always kind of believed I like to recruit tall guys that can shoot and then coach them how to play defense. It is a different defensive team for me this year, though, for our team. Last year's team was quick and small. We could get out in pressure. This year's team's a little bit taller and longer. We're not able to pressure the ball as much. And so, I don't know if I can totally answer that question. Our numbers are pretty close to what they were last year. We're probably not defending the 3 as well, which surprises me a little bit, because with our length, I would think we should be able to take away that shot. And so I think that's something moving forward that we got to get better at, is defending the 3-point line. I would expect us to get beat off the dribble a little bit more just based upon our size, but we do have more size at the basket to protect. And so I like where we're at with our length. We got to keep evolving. And
one of those players down low that's really been an impact player for you so far is Elgin Cook. Of course, you alluded to the people that was here in January,
right?
And he sat out last year, but he's a special player.
He is. Elgin's got some DNA in him. His dad's Alvin Robertson, that played in the NBA for 10 years with the Bucks and the Spurs. He was the All Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA. So he comes from a good basketball family. He signed with Iowa State out of high school. He's going to be one of the more highly recruited kids in the country this year. He's shooting about 66% from the field right now, and he's a tremendous athlete. But I think he too can keep getting better. He's a guy that he's only played 9 college games, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
And so I think as we go forward, he'll get better and better.
Now, Coach, one thing that's a little bit different this year, actually is unprecedented, really, in the National Junior College Athletic Association. We actually have at-large bids now.
Right.
What we used to have is 16 regions, 16 teams. Now we have 24 teams, 4 of which are at-large. So talk a little bit about how that kind of plays into your mindset moving forward and for the rest of the season and beyond.
Yeah, well, I think it's really important. I think, number one, I think it's a great idea.
Sure.
I don't think you go to the national tournament to finish 7th or 8th.
Yeah.
And I mean that I think once you get beat, you're probably ready to go home. And so the double elimination is over, which I like that. Because there's going to be some teams year in and year out that don't make it that should make it.
Sure.
So hopefully now, those teams will get in. Obviously our number one goal is to win the region. I mean, that gets you automatically in, no ifs, ands, or buts. But now I think it does put some emphasis on the non-conference and playing well and being ranked high throughout the season. That might be a little tougher here in our league because our league is so good. And we have to play 3 times. Right now, us and Chipola are in the top 5 in the country in our conference. And so that's going to make it tough for us to one of us to stay that high probably because we got to play each other.
Sure.
In Tallahassee and Gulf are good and Pensacola. So. But I think it's exciting. I think it gives you something to play for the whole year. It makes the region tournament a little bit more interesting. Even if you do get beat, you may still have a chance. So I like the forward thinking of it. I'm really kind of surprised it's taken this long to get to that, but it has, and I'm glad that it has.
Absolutely. Now, as we look at the conference, you kind of alluded to, Chipola's off to a tremendous start. Of course, Tallahassee's really peaking right now, probably at the right time. And Gulf Coast and Pensacola are very tough as well. When we break down the conference schedule, we play Gulf Coast twice on the road and Pensacola twice on the road, or Tallahassee twice on the road. Right. And of course, we've got Pensacola and Chipola twice at home. Certainly, it's good to have Chipola twice at home. When we come back from the Christmas break, you start off with that January 2nd game against Shelton State, then we pick it right up at Gulf Coast on that Saturday, and then Wednesday the 9th on January, we host Chipola.
Yeah, it's going to be. We're going to find out right away, and we can't panic either. Obviously we want to win every game. Last year we went 11-1, and I'd like to do that again. Now, if it doesn't go that way, then we got to grind it out. And we're going to be tested early because I think I really think golf's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think they have a lot of guys back. And
tough place to play.
They've been around, and then Chipola's going to come in here and have a lot of hype behind them, and they're going to want to come in here and win, especially since we beat them 3 times last year, and so those will be hot, toughly contested games. But before we play Shelton, we still have the 2 games down at Gulf Coast to get ready. We'll have 3 games under our belt coming back. I like that, and so we'll see. We should be ready to go, but. I think in a league like that, and I know this sounds bland, but you do got to take them one at a time. You just got to go to the next one, no matter win or loss. You got to treat each one like it's a big game because it is.
And I think our fans certainly are starting to appreciate what was last year. But this is this year. This is a new team. And it may not be the same. Like you said, it may not be 11-1, but still the ultimate goal is to get to where we want to go.
Oh, no question. And I have to be careful of that as a coach. Sure. And your dad's reminded me of that a few times, that I can't compare last year to this year, especially last year's team when you're thinking about them is in March.
Sure.
Last year's team just wasn't like this, They weren't in March form in January, December, November, and so you never know. This team will hopefully keep evolving.
Well, that's what I've seen. That's what is encouraging to us, is the fact that they're getting better every week, and that's great, Coach. So I'm sorry we got to wrap up, but certainly, Coach, thank you very much for joining us. It's worth the price of admission, folks, to watch this team in action. They're very exciting, and certainly have lofty goals and aspire to attain those goals. So, Coach, best of luck this season.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, that wraps up our winter edition of the Raider Sports Beat. And once again, we encourage you to visit our website at nwfraiders.org to check out all the schedules and latest news and highlights. Thank you and have a good night.
Northwest Florida State College presents Outlook, a public service presentation of the college and Cox Communications, focusing on the events, activities, and instructional programs of Northwest Florida State College.